Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. See what the Lord has done, brother. Don't you worry, brother. Don't you worry, brother. Don't you worry. See what the Lord has done. Heaven's journey is almost over. 10,000 years have come and gone. Brother, no, don't you worry. You gotta see what the Lord has done. Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. See what the Lord has done. Troubles and trials almost over. Troubles and trials almost over. Troubles and trials almost over. See what the Lord has done. Sister, don't stop singing. Sister, don't stop singing. Sister, don't stop singing. See what the Lord has done. Heaven's journey is almost over. 10,000 years have come and gone. Brother, no, don't you worry. You gotta see what the Lord has done. Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. Keep your lamp trimmed and burning. See what the Lord has done.
Hello, and welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Linda Thompson, and I'm a member of the Worship Associates Ministry at the church. Whoever you are, whoever you love, however you arrived at this virtual worship service, you are welcome here.
Freedom.
To be a Unitarian Universalist means we'll never be done with the work of telling the truth about oppression, the work of resisting any laws, policies, or practices that deny anyone their humanity, the work of stubbornly seeking out the spark of the divine in each other, no matter what, the work of creating heaven on earth. To be a Unitarian Universalist also means that we're not alone in the work. We are not alone because of our promises to love one another. We are not alone because we are companions on the journey. We grow ourselves into allies, helping one another get free. Because none of us is truly free until we are all free. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith, with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all that is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with a force of love, love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise.
My The reading this morning is a prayer written by Unitarian Universalist minister Kendall Gibbons following the guilty verdict this past week on Tuesday. Ancient divinity, who has brought meaning and order to human life by summoning us to the right way with your commandments, who requires of your people that we shall not take your holy name in vain. Teach us anew this fateful evening what that ordinance means. Let the word justice not come so easily to our lips, for that is one of your sacred names. And we should take it into our mouths with deep humility and a prayer for mercy. For justice is not what has been done this day. Our public drama of righteous condemnation and repudiation of one who enacted the silent will of many is needful against greater harm, but it is not justice. Making an example is overdue, but it is not justice. To call it that is to blaspheme, to take your name in vain. The work of this day will not give back life to the murdered, or a son to a grieving mother, or a father to a daughter too soon old. It will not make black children safe, or feed them when they hunger, or make them grow strong and shining in their power. It will not stay the hand of racist violence, or heal our blighted neighborhoods, or put ballots in black hands, or change one blood-stained moment in the past 400 years of horror. Almighty justice, teach us not to take your name in vain, but show us how far short we have fallen and how long a journey there is yet to go before we dare petition you in that word. If we are to pursue justice and do it, we must become people who love mercy better than death. We must learn to walk humbly in creation. We do give thanks for a step in a new direction, for the turning that might begin to bring us round right. Call us now to the fullness of what your justice promises, to the community of wholeness for which we were made. O God, whose other name is peace, whose other name is love.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle
For there to be justice, the system must change. A sermon for April 25th, 2021. The famous progressive Protestant preacher William Sloane Coffin once spoke of the importance of preaching with the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. When I sketched out my preaching calendar for the spring, I slotted this Sunday to be a prophetic sermon, a newspaper in one hand sermon responding to themes of justice and right in our society and world. A glance at the newspapers this week left me feeling overwhelmed. There is so much to which our Unitarian Universalist faith, our principles, and our values might speak in this moment. Most obviously, this past week saw a verdict of guilt handed down in the trial of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. The right decision. This past week also saw communities across our country reeling from young black people killed by police. Dante Wright, aged 20 in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Adam Toledo, aged 13 in Chicago. Ma'Khia Bryant, aged 16 in Columbus, Ohio. This past week as well included yet more casualties due to mass shootings, which are, it seems, a uniquely American epidemic. In just one of the most notable recent mass shootings, 8 employees were killed at a shipping center in Indianapolis, Indiana, by a former employee. This former employee, just 19 years old, had managed to purchase multiple semi-automatic weapons, despite being found just a few months earlier of having been dangerous and having his guns, his firearms, confiscated by police. And he was able to go and get more. The level of government this past week saw more voter disenfranchisement legislation. This spring, Republican-controlled legislatures across the country have passed legislation designed to make it harder for black and brown people, for poor people, for young people to vote. This legislation is fundamentally racist and fundamentally white supremacist. These voter suppression bills are an abomination before the standards of democracy. These voter suppression bills are an abomination to our Unitarian Universalist principles. What's more, just this past week, proponents of this legislation, including members of Congress, have publicly endorsed these laws using the white nationalist rhetoric of replacement theory. Replacement theory is the racist idea that people of color are threatening to replace the white race, and that people of color must therefore be marginalized and excluded in our society because white people have a natural right to supremacy. The ideology behind voter suppression and voter disenfranchisement legislation today is no different than the ideology behind the Jim Crow laws of the last century, no different than the ideology behind apartheid in South Africa, no different than the sick ideology behind the Nuremberg laws of Nazi Germany. These laws are disgusting and disgraceful. And it might be noted that this past week saw even more instance of another type of legislation that is being proposed and passed in Republican-controlled legislatures across the country. This legislation has to do with making life harder for transgender, genderqueer, and gender non-binary children and youth. These laws trample upon the relationship of medical doctors, therapists, counselors, and social workers with the youth they care for. These laws ban certain types of medical care and threaten health care providers with prison. These laws mandate exclusion and discrimination in education, sports, public accommodations. These laws are simply bigotry and bullying. They are disgusting, disgraceful, and dangerous. They are an assault and an insult to standards of science and to our Unitarian Universalist principles. Sometimes you preach with the newspaper in one hand, and there is more than one sermon. For more than a year, starting with the preparation for our journey to Selma and Montgomery, which had to be canceled last spring because of the pandemic, and carrying forth into the fall and our 29-day racial equity challenge, which so many of our church members participated in, and into reading books like Cast and having movie discussions and holding anti-racist office hours. As a church, many of our members have dived into a deeper understanding of race, racism, and the legacy of racism in our nation. As I watched parts of the Derek Chauvin trial, as I thought about all that transpired, I wondered, how is it? How is it that one person, one man, so callously, so cavalierly takes the life of another man? And how is it? How is it that a person accused of what was he accused for? Of trying to pass a phony $20 bill winds up executed in the street? And for that matter, how does Eric Garner, accused of selling loose cigarettes, wind up executed in the street? And how does Dante Wright, accused of driving with expired tags, wind up executed in the street? And how does Karen Nazario, driving his own pickup truck, wind up pepper sprayed repeatedly 2, 3, 4 times and fearing for his own life? How is it that at most, the smallest of minor infractions, and at the least just going about your daily business and living your life, driving your own car, entering your own home, sleeping in your own bed, how is it that these turn into being killed, shot, choked, brutalized by state authorities? I believe that to understand this, it's necessary to go back to 1865, to the passage of the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but made an exception. The exception was for the forced labor of incarcerated people. And so it was, taking advantage of that exception, that the state, the authorities quickly jumped into the business of over-policing, of hyper-policing African Americans, overcharging them for the most minor of offenses, and at times just inventing crimes in order to justify the mass arrests of African Americans, re-enslaving through the practice of convict leasing. Slavery may have been abolished on paper, but the big business of profits from stolen labor now ran through the state functions of policing, courts, and prisons. There is a powerful heart-wrenching documentary called The 13th, which describes this history in greater detail. And so you find in the history that after the Civil War, the invention of vague crimes like vagrancy, loitering, under the criminal codes of post-Civil War era, it becomes a crime just to be black. Slavery required racial dehumanization, seeing a race as less than human. In the era of slavery, the era after slavery required racial criminalization, seeing African Americans as inherently criminal. And so it is that we can draw a direct line from the racial dehumanization that slavery necessitated to the racial dehumanization that allows life to be taken so quickly, so casually. And we can draw a direct line from the hyper-policing of newly freed African Americans 150 years ago to the hyper-policing and mass incarceration of African Americans today. And all of this raises the question, what does justice look like? Following the trial, I found myself led to reflect on the remarks made by Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison immediately after the trial. Ellison said, quote, "I would not call today's verdict justice, however, because justice implies true restoration. But it is accountability, which is the first step towards justice. And now the cause of justice is in your hands," Ellison said. And when I say your hands, I mean the hands of the people of the United States. Barack Obama, in a statement he made on Tuesday, put it much more succinctly, saying, quote, "Today a jury did the right thing, but true justice requires much more." When Keith Ellison says that justice implies true restoration, what could that possibly mean? After all, in the case of murder, in the case of a death, what does restoration mean? Here's what I think he means. We often think of justice using that ancient symbol of a blindfolded goddess holding scales. It is an ancient symbol, the goddess Justitia in Latin, holding that scale, weighing. And there's an old concept of justice, that a debt on one side must be evened out by a corresponding debt on the other side. This is justice understood as a keeping of accounts. If someone costs you unjustly, they must account for that cost and repay you, balancing the scales. In that ancient understanding of justice, an eye can be accounted for with an eye, a tooth can be accounted for with a tooth, even a life may be paid for with another life in this settling of accounts. That's one understanding of justice. A life is taken unjustly, and so we send the person responsible to prison for some number of years that we judge to account for the life that was taken. Accountability. But there is another understanding of justice. A life is taken and can only be balanced out by some change to the fabric of our society, to the fabric of a community that protects and safeguards and enhances life. We can only redeem a life lost with a corresponding uplift, protection, defense of life, some change. And so when Keith Ellison speaks of the difference between accountability and justice, I believe this is the distinction he is making. The conviction, while it brings accountability, it does not change or alter or transform a system that is inherently unjust. When Keith Ellison differentiates between accountability and justice, he is talking about the difference between an individualistic understanding and a social understanding. Because here's the truth. When we understand these tragic, heartbreaking, horrific events individualistically, in an atomistic way, we can only talk about personal accountability. However, when we understand them contextually, systemically, socially, historically, then we can pursue justice. Because for there to be justice, the system must change. For there to be justice, the system must change. Ellison is right. It's beyond the scope of 12 jurors to bring justice. For justice only comes when the system changes. And the system only changes through our collective efforts, redoubled. The greatest insult to George Floyd's life and to the life of all the so many others for whom there was no accountability, much less justice, would be to say that on Tuesday, well, the system worked. Because the system is not designed to work. For there to be justice, the system must change. And it's to these efforts which can be taken up legislatively, these efforts which can be taken up through protest, these efforts which can be taken up through processes like the Orange County Bail Bond Project here that our church is a partner with Binkley Baptist and other congregations. It's only through organizations like Forward Together and the NAACP and the UU Justice Ministry of North Carolina. It's only through this work, collectively, bravely, courageously, that we can design a system that is just. Amen. Blessed be. Two, three, four.
I wanna walk a mile in your shoes. I wanna walk a mile in your shoes. I wanna know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, so I really wanna walk a mile in your shoes. Remember that fight that we had? Why did we both have to lose? It's because we both walked away mad instead of walking a mile in each other's shoes. I wanna walk a mile in your shoes. I wanna walk a mile in your shoes. I wanna know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, so I really wanna walk a mile in your shoes. You hear how the world is a mess every time we turn on the news, but our country's full of happiness if they were walking a mile in each other's shoes. I wanna walk a mile in your shoes. I wanna walk a mile in your shoes. I wanna know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, so I really wanna walk a mile in your shoes. Temperatures start to cool down, a frown turns into a smile. Oh, anger just cannot be found when you're wearing those shoes and you're walking that mile. I wanna walk a mile in your shoes. I wanna walk
Each week, we hold a time in our service for the sharing of the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us into this community. Each week, people send in their joys and sorrows, and I place stones to recognize them. The first stone that we placed this week was asked to be placed by Anna Waller. On Thursday evening, Anna's father, Marcus, died at age 92. Though he had health problems, his death was sudden and unexpected. Our hearts go out in sympathy to Anna and Steve, to their children, Rowan and Aiden, as well as to Anna's sister, Martha, and to the whole Waller family for your loss. Second stone that is placed is a stone of joy. Donna Washington wrote to me and asked me to place a stone for her husband, Dave Klibenau's birthday, which was on Thursday, the 22nd of April. Happy birthday, Dave. And I hope you got a wonderful birthday shirt this year. Final stone is placed this morning for all those joys and sorrows that live in our hearts. Our hearts go to everyone in this community, dealing with the loss of a loved one, dealing with illness, struggling in whatever way. Our hearts go as well to each person in their joys, their simple gratitudes, and their blessings. Amidst the joys and the sorrows of our community, we hold a time of prayer and look forward to that day when we are together in person to share these joys and sorrows again. Amen. I invite you to join with me in the words by which we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now, won't you please join with me in singing Shalom.
Shalom, my friends, shalom.